At some point in time, we've all found ourselves in the position where we felt lost, like we didn't know what steps to take next, having no confidence in ourselves and feeling like we've lost control over our lives. To regain that control doesn't mean to be able to control everything that happens to you, but rather to gain the necessary confidence in yourself and your capabilities that you can tackle anything that life throws at you. Throughout history, many have pondered over the best strategies one can take to take that control back and feel confident again, with writings on the subject from as far back as the ancient Greek philosophers, including Plato. Plato lived between 429 and 347 BCE, and he is without a doubt one of the most influential writers in the history of philosophy. The ethical, philosophical and political questions he raised in his work are so profound that almost every great thinker from any epoch after him was influenced in one way or another by Plato's work. Plato was the first thinker in history who established philosophy as a rigorous and systematic examination of life's important questions. His philosophy is often referred to as Platonic Idealism, and his biggest contribution to the field is the theory of forms or doctrine of ideas, which is the philosophical view that what we perceive through our senses are illusions, merely the shadows of a more profound reality. Plato was part of the trio known today as the three great Golden Age philosophers, together with Socrates, Plato's mentor, and Aristotle, Plato's student. Plato was the one who founded academia, or the academy, the world's first university. He was very involved in the educational system of Athens and wrote a great number of books. Some of his most important books include The Republic, Phaedo, The Apology of Socrates, Parmenides, Symposium, Protagoras, Charmides, and many others. In almost all his books, Socrates' figure is overwhelmingly present. Socrates didn't write anything in his life, but through Plato, his philosophy became heard across the millennia. That is at least in part because Plato's way of thinking often coincided with Socrates. Plato didn't provide abstract teachings through his books, but rather had lessons which anyone can apply to their own lives. Some of the most basic lessons have to deal with the idea of being a good citizen and friend without overestimating your own ideas. To hold yourself to the same rigor you hold others to when you're making assertions, and to always look for intellectual integrity. Another important lesson is that first you need to take control over your life by conquering yourself, your impulses and drives in order to live a moral and fulfilling life. To better understand the Platonic philosophy on how we can better take control over our lives, here are 5 lessons from the philosophy of Plato. Number 1. Change your mindset. Plato said, "Reality is created by the mind. We can change our reality by changing our mind." In Plato's view, what we perceive by our senses is not true reality. Our perceptions are just the shadows of a world of ideas that we can access through reasoning. For Plato, the mind is not simply an instrument to perceive the physical reality we see with the naked eyes. Reasoning, using your mind, is the only way to access the world of ideas, the true reality which is beyond all physical objects and natural phenomena. Thus, the more sound our reasoning is, the closer we are to true reality. To understand what's truly real, we don't need to look outside to the external world, but inside into the intricacies of our own mind. Only when you look inside yourself, when you use philosophy as a tool to clarify what's right and what's wrong, what makes logical sense and what does not, can you reach the truth. When you reach the truth, then you can start developing certain life principles, guides to use to act properly in society and how to treat your fellow human beings. Moreover, you'll start to see what's around you much more clearly, as well as understanding yourself much better. Knowing what's good and bad will help you act faster, more decisively, and more ethically. Knowing who you are will change your reality. You will attract like-minded people and start to live a more fulfilling life in line with your core principles and values. However, according to Plato, just because we wish something to happen doesn't imply it will. Reality doesn't change according to what we wish, but what we can change is how clearly we perceive what is truly real, if we change our mindset. Reality can be understood only through deep thinking, which helps us understand the most profound concepts of reality, including what's good and bad. Plato understood that by changing one's mindset, we can elevate our minds to a higher level of understanding. True change can only come from looking inside. When we understand ourselves better, the reality around us will change. According to Plato, our normal lives are spent in a sort of cave, and we can only see the shadow of true realities projected on its walls. To see true reality, we need to get out of the cave in full daylight. Only when we strengthen our mindset, learn how to control it, and focus on reflecting more on the deepest issues of our existence, will we be able to get out and see a brand new reality. The quality of our thinking influences how we feel, and how we feel influences how our body reacts, how we behave, and consequently, who we become. For example, consider you're unemployed, and because of this, you develop a negative attitude and low self-esteem, thinking you're a failure, feeling discouraged and depressed. Your body will reflect this state of mind. You may slump your shoulders, avoid eye contact, and generally project no confidence. If we're to follow Plato, the solution to get out of this helpless state is not to correct your behavior, apply behavioral psychology, or use some psychological trick to make you feel better, but rather to reflect deeply on why your way of thinking was wrong in the first place. You need to use objective reasoning and try to see yourself from the outside. Perhaps you can look at other people around you. Are there people you know who are out of work but are otherwise extremely skillful? Can you think of cases in history when highly qualified men or women were refused a good job? Take Walt Disney, for example. In 1919, Disney was fired from the Kansas City Star newspaper because, according to his editor, he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Let that sink in for a moment. The man behind the most popular entertainment brand for generations got fired from a local newspaper for his lack of creativity. If this is true, then we can objectively see that being unemployed today doesn't deny one the potential for success in the long term. Thus, by reasoning objectively, you can access the reality behind your fears, and you can start to have a clearer perspective on what's truly possible for you. Changing your mindset will change your reality. The more optimistic and confident you become, the more eager you will be to apply for other jobs on the market. Deep reasoning will help you understand what's possible for you and will help you change your mindset, which is the first step in taking control over your life. Number 2. Change your habits. According to Plato, we do not act rightly because we are excellent. In fact, we achieve excellence by acting rightly. A major aspect of taking control of your life is to take control of your habits. To reach our goals, we need a plan, which cannot work if we don't follow through. Habits are those activities which help us progress towards our goals. To achieve anything worthwhile, we need to prove that we can be excellent in a certain area. For Plato, excellence is not a gift, but a skill that takes practice. Talent is not enough. We're not skilled from the moment we're born, and any talent needs proper work. Plato was a great example of a person who achieved excellence by acting rightly. He achieved excellence by becoming one of the greatest philosophers. It can be said that philosophy is one of the inventions of Plato, as he was one of the first thinkers who laid down in writing a rigorous philosophical system. In addition, he was also the founder of the Academy or Academia, the first organized school in Western civilization. None of these were by accident. He chose to make education and philosophy a priority in his life, and he worked on bringing his ideas into reality. He didn't expect other people's help to achieve his goals. He took control of his life, and he, by himself, made the plan to achieve his goals, and he followed through with the plan. No matter how brilliant he was, he knew that only through the habit of the hard work of writing and coming up with initiatives could he succeed. The habits that we choose to apply in daily life will take the form of our character in the end. The more you practice certain habits, the more they will become a part of yourself. The more they will define you. Therefore, it's important to have a vision of the goal you want to reach, of the person you want to become. Then you can construct a system of habits to help take you there. The bigger your goal is, the more careful you need to be with the kind of habits you have. If you want to be a great salesperson, for example, you need to practice being in front of clients as much as possible. You need to have the habit of making many phone calls per day and having the habit to learn from other successful salespeople before you, either by directly asking them about their sales strategies or by reading books written by them. If the habits that you have now don't reflect the habits of a successful person you want to be someday, then you need to change those habits and make sure you adopt the right ones on a daily basis. You can't be in control of your life if you can't control the kind of activities you do every day. Number 3. Be in control of your emotions and behavior. To quote Plato, "The first and best victory is to conquer self. To be conquered by self is, of all things, the most shameful and vile." According to Plato, to be in control of your life is to also make rational thinking a way of life. This means that whatever you do, you need to guard your behavior, the words you say, and the emotions you feel, and act only after you've filtered all your impulses through your capacity of reasoning. Although it sounds like common sense, in reality it takes a huge amount of willpower and discipline. Plato compared the human soul to a person driving a chariot pulled by 2 flying horses. One horse is white and beautiful and represents our thumos, or spiritedness, emotions which are justified by a spirit of justice or other noble sentiments. The other horse is black, ugly and bad, and it represents our destructive emotions. The white horse is the part of our soul which gives us the rational and moral impulses, and the ugly horse is the one who pushes us towards irrational passions. The white horse is immortal, temperate, modest and well-behaved, not needing any whips, while the black horse is mortal, deformed and stubborn, and doesn't follow commands. The chariot intends to lead the horses to the heavens in the world of pure ideas or forms. But the main challenge is to control the black horse that causes problems and pulls us towards the earth. To be able to climb to the heavens, or in other words, to access true reality or to reach enlightenment, the driver has to learn how to control the black horse. And they can control it only when they focus on heaven, on the world of forms, on the abstract concepts behind the physical objects we see in our physical world. However, we can't throw our irrational passions overboard, so we should try to apply them in a constructive way to cooperate with the voice of reason. If we don't, they can backfire and cause extreme damage to our life. Nothing is more rewarding than to know you conquered yourself, that you can drive your actions in the direction you consciously want them to go, not in the way your emotions and impulses demand. If, however, you make decisions impulsively, nothing else would matter much because you would always be in danger of destroying everything you're trying to build. Consider you love your job and want to rise up the ranks in your company, but you find out your boss took one of your ideas and claimed to his bosses that he thought of the whole thing. Now he really needs you to stay and work overtime in order to work on the project, and you, because you feel angry with him for stealing your thunder, refused him. Instead of seeing the big picture of the situation, you just followed your first emotional urge to punish your boss. Or it might be the case that you have a drinking problem, the need to drink dominating your daily life. In this case, alcohol has conquered you, and to gain your control back, you might need to begin therapy sessions to address the problem. No matter how big your problem is, there might be ways to improve your situation and to increase your willpower to resist the destructive emotions and control your behavior. You need to learn to control your emotions and behavior if you want to be in control of your life. If you don't control your emotions and behavior, you will damage all of your personal and professional relationships, your career, your well-being, and you could find yourself in a downward spiral from which it would be very difficult to climb back. The more you learn to control your emotions and behavior, the more in control of your life you will be. Number 4. Pursue your deepest passions. In the words of Plato, "To the degree that I cease to pursue my deepest passions, I will gradually be controlled by my deepest fears." In Plato's works, it can often be seen that Plato wanted to puzzle his readers by revealing some truths contrary to common sense. For example, one might think that when you pursue your deepest passions, you'd face difficult obstacles, that you'd always be fearful of failing, and that you'd eventually end up facing your deepest fears. However, Plato argues that the opposite is true. It's when you stop pursuing your deepest passions that you end up being controlled by those fears. Although in some books like Phaedo, through the voice of Socrates, Plato emphasized the danger of being controlled by extreme and destructive emotions, in other works Plato recognized the huge importance of following constructive and noble passions. For Plato, only the soul is immortal in us, and our soul is trapped in our body, which is mortal. During our life, there's always a conflict between the soul, who's concerned with what's good and rational, and the body, which is driven by irrational passions. If we're oriented towards pleasures like food, drink, and sex, we'd keep our soul imprisoned in the body, and it won't be able to express itself in this world. Moreover, pursuing such common pleasures keeps us in fear. The more concerned we are about living a lavish life, the more we fear we'll lose our job, not measure up to our peers, or lose our status in society. A life focused on pleasures and security brings more anxiety. By contrast, if we orient ourselves towards intellectual pleasures like philosophy, education, the desire to contribute to society, to innovate and create, we'll see ourselves as part of something greater. We'll be more inclined to take more risks, and in doing so achieve greater success and fulfillment because we pursue our deepest and most elevated passions. In this case, we fear less because our identity is not defined by what we lack or could lose. Instead, it's now defined by our positive contribution to the world, something we've already achieved, something immutable, locked into history. Pursuing our deepest and most elevated passions helps us in reducing the fears in our life, and thus increases the sense of being in control. Being less attached to worldly pleasures like living in a big house, having expensive cars, or overindulging in physical pleasures, we can experience a greater sense of freedom, allowing us to be more in control of our lives. Number 5. Be the leader of your life. In our final quote from Plato for this video, he says, "He who refuses to rule is liable to be ruled by one who's worse than himself." Plato often talked about the importance of getting involved in politics. He was of the opinion that society should be composed of 3 groups. First, the plebs, the most inferior, then the soldiers to keep society under control, and the third, the rulers, who should always be philosophers. Plato thought that philosophers, the most intelligent in his time, should govern over the less educated ones. Democracy meant that political decisions should be made by the demos, meaning all people in a state. Plato was against this idea, as he considered that making political decisions requires the judgment and skills that only experts have. Experts being, in his view, philosophers. However, his view that people should be proactive and should strive to lead those who are less knowledgeable than them deserves consideration. Many of us have had moments when, instead of assuming leadership in uncertain situations, we felt scared and we let people less qualified than us lead us. When we do this, we leave them control over us, and this can have damaging consequences. When we repeat this pattern of not taking initiative and leadership, other people will take advantage of us and will rule over us. To take back control of your life, you need to learn to make your voice heard, to analyze each situation objectively, to recognize those situations in which you have the most expertise and to take control of them when needed. For example, it might be the case that you need to say something in a work meeting when you see a problem, even if your position in the company is very junior. Your courage for speaking up leads to the issue being addressed and improving the company. This may be rewarded and may even lead to a promotion. However, if you just keep quiet when others around you make mistakes and you follow along with bad decisions for an easy life, you'll continue being ruled by them, and as such, they will have control over you. According to Plato, the person with the most knowledge in a situation should call the shots, no matter the position of that person. Don't let yourself be intimidated by the hierarchy of the team you're part of. You are the leader of your own life. Don't allow anyone to make decisions instead of you if they have less knowledge than you in the matters at hand. Choose to be the ruler of your own life, to take control of your mindset, and find true happiness. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to check out our full Philosophies for Life playlist. And for more videos to help you find success and happiness using ancient philosophical wisdom, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.